Today God message, my child, everyone in heaven is crying for you because, my child, today a holy message reaches you, whispered from eternity into the depths of your being. Everyone in heaven is crying, not because you are forsaken, but because you have forgotten the truth of who you are. Angels do not weep out of despair, they weep out of love, because they see the divine inheritance within you lying dormant while you wrestle with shadows. You were never meant to walk in fear, never meant to bow before lack, never meant to drown in sorrow. Those heavenly tears are reminders, living symbols of your untapped greatness, calling you to awaken from the dream of limitation. The heavens long for you to rise, to reclaim the authority planted in you from the beginning of time. Their cries are not chains but invitations, urging you to lift your head, to step into the light of faith, and to remember that creation itself bends to the power of your inner vision. Today, God's message is clear. You are not small, you are not forgotten, you are not broken. You are chosen, and heaven will not rest until you know it. Heaven's tears are symbols of your forgotten power, my child. When you hear the words that everyone in heaven is crying for you, do not mistake it as a message of despair or punishment. It is a divine signal that you have wandered too far from the truth of your being, and all of heaven aches for you to remember. Heaven's tears are not like human tears, fragile or powerless. They are sacred symbols, reminders that the eternal has invested all of its glory in you, yet you live as though you are small, powerless, and broken. These cries are the echoes of love, the longing of eternity itself, urging you to awaken from the slumber of limitation and step back into your rightful inheritance as a child of God. Heaven cries not because you are lost, but because you have forgotten where your true home is. You were never meant to bow before the chains of fear, never meant to accept lack as your portion, never meant to call sorrow your destiny. Heaven's mourning is a reflection of the truth that lies dormant within you. The power to imagine, to create, to transform, to live as one who has authority over every circumstance. You see, when you call yourself weak, heaven knows you are mighty. When you call yourself broken, heaven knows you are whole. When you call yourself poor, heaven knows that infinite riches are already stored within you. And so heaven weeps, not out of hopelessness, but out of deep compassion, because it sees how easily you have exchanged your crown for chains, your scepter for fear, your throne for doubt. But my child, this crying is not the end. It is a call, a holy invitation for you to remember who you are. The tears are not for your destruction, but for your awakening. Every tear from heaven is a whisper saying, rise, my child, you are greater than you think, stronger than you feel, richer than you see. Do you not know that the very breath of God animates your being? Do you not see that creation itself bends to the command of your imagination? The universe does not respond to your complaints, but to your visions. It does not listen to your despair, but to your faith. Heaven cries because you keep asking for what you already possess, as though you were begging for crumbs when the feast is already laid before you. Every angel, every saint, every voice of the unseen world weeps in harmony, not because they doubt your future, but because you have delayed it by doubting yourself. Heaven sees you, surrounded by doors waiting to be opened, but you remain seated in front of the same locked gate, crying that there is no way out. My child, every time you look at your life and see only problems, heaven sees possibilities. Every time you see lack, heaven sees abundance. Every time you see yourself as weak, heaven sees the image of God shining within you. And the longer you resist that truth, the louder heaven's cry becomes, not to condemn you, but to remind you. You were never created to live beneath your inheritance. Consider this. When a child forgets his father's house and wanders into the wilderness, is it not natural for the family to cry for him, not because he is forsaken, but because he is living as though he has no home? Heaven's tears are like that. They are the aching of a family waiting for you to come back, the longing of love that knows you belong in the palace, not in the pit. The tragedy is not that you are weak, the tragedy is that you believe it. The sorrow is not that you lack, the sorrow is that you identify with it. The tears are not for what you face, but for how you see yourself in the face of it. For heaven knows that if you would dare to imagine differently, if you would dare to see yourself as God sees you, if you would dare to walk in faith rather than fear, then the tears would dry, and the whole of heaven would break into song, rejoicing at your awakening. But here is the mystery, my child. Those tears are also power. They are not passive symbols, but active forces pressing you toward awakening. Each tear from heaven waters the soil of your spirit, urging you to grow, to rise, to remember. The more you suffer, the louder heaven calls. The more you doubt, the stronger heaven cries. But the moment you turn within and say, I will no longer accept this illusion of weakness, I will no longer bow to fear, I will no longer shrink in the face of life, heaven's tears turn into joy, for you have remembered. Do not think of heaven as far away. Heaven is within you, and its tears flow in your heart as restlessness, as holy dissatisfaction, as the inner voice that tells you, this is not who you truly are. Have you not felt it? That ache inside that says life must be more than this, that quiet stirring that tells you your destiny is bigger, that soft whisper that says you are meant for more, that is heaven crying inside you, calling you to rise. And so, my child, heaven's message today is simple yet profound. Stop living beneath your power. Stop calling yourself small when God has made you great. Stop seeing yourself as weak when you are clothed in strength. Stop agreeing with the lies of circumstance when the truth of eternity beats within your chest. For every time you forget your divinity, heaven cries, but every time you remember, heaven rejoices. The angels have been waiting for this moment. The saints have been watching. The eternal has been longing, not for you to suffer, but for you to awaken. You carry the creative power of imagination, the authority of faith, the seed of divine creation itself. You are not a victim of life. Life is the canvas, and you are the painter. Heaven weeps until you pick up the brush and paint with vision, with faith, with courage, with love. So today, hear the cry not as sorrow, but as invitation. Heaven is crying for you because it loves you too much to leave you where you are. The tears are proof that you are chosen, that you are destined for greatness, that your life cannot end in defeat. The whole of heaven is invested in your awakening, and its tears are the testimony of that love. Rise, my child, for the crying will not last forever. Heaven will rejoice the moment you remember who you truly are. Step out of the shadows, lift your head, reclaim your birthright, and know this truth. Heaven has never stopped believing in you, even when you stop believing in yourself. And that is why today God says, my child, everyone in heaven is crying for you because you have forgotten your power. But when you remember, heaven itself will sing. Your suffering is a reflection of misused imagination, my child. Today heaven whispers a mystery into your spirit. The suffering you endure is not punishment, nor is it a curse placed upon you by an angry God, but rather it is the shadow cast when imagination is used without awareness, when divine power is turned unconsciously toward fear instead of faith, toward lack instead of abundance, toward despair instead of hope. You are a creator whether you know it or not, and the images you hold within your mind eventually take form in the world you live in. Every thought you nurse, every picture you entertain, every belief you repeat becomes flesh, and life cannot help but mirror back to you visions you have planted. Heaven cries not because you are weak, but because you do not see how much of your suffering is self-authored, how much of your pain is born from a mind that has been left to wander in dark fields, cultivating thorns instead of flowers, storms instead of sunshine. You think life is cruel, yet life is only echoing the song you sing in secret. You think the world is against you, yet the world is only wearing the mask of your hidden fears. Heaven weeps because you believe you are cursed, when in reality you are creating the very prison in which you sit, and heaven longs for you to awaken to this truth so that you may create differently. For as long as you imagine lack, you will live in lack. As long as you imagine sickness, you will feel sickness. As long as you imagine betrayal, you will attract betrayal. The tragedy is not that these things happen, but that you do not know you are the one weaving them. Child, understand this. Your imagination is the womb of creation, the holy ground where invisible seeds are sown. When you dwell on thoughts of failure, you impregnate that womb with failure. When you meditate on fear, you give life to fearful experiences. When you replay memories of pain, you are watering the soil of future pain. Do you see why heaven cries? Not because you are destined to suffer, but because you keep forgetting that your inner vision is stronger than your outer condition, and as long as you misuse it, your world cannot help but reflect your misuse. Every sleepless night where you rehearse your troubles, every conversation where you speak of lack, every silent fear that grips your heart is shaping your tomorrows. And when you wake to more sorrow, you think life has betrayed you. when in truth it has only obeyed. You, the angels, grieve because they know the authority you carry, and they see you using it against yourself, molding chains instead of keys, forming storms instead of shelter. But do not mistake heaven's tears as hopelessness. They are cries of love, calling you to shift, to turn the power of imagination back to its rightful use. What if, instead of dwelling on fear, you imagined yourself victorious? What if, instead of feeding lack, you imagined abundance flowing freely to you? What if, instead of replaying betrayal, you saw yourself surrounded by love and loyalty? Would not your life begin to bend to those new visions? The truth is, it already does. Life is not mocking you, it is serving you faithfully, unceasingly, reflecting back to you the substance of your inner state. Suffering comes not because God desires it, but because you have unknowingly set the stage for it, and heaven weeps for you to know you can set a new stage, you can choose a new picture, you can lift your eyes from the pit and fix them on the palace, you can close the chapter of sorrow and begin one of joy, and your world must obey, for imagination is law. The tragedy of mankind has never been weakness but forgetfulness. You suffer not because you are powerless, but because you forget that you are powerful. You live in shadows not because light has abandoned you, but because you have closed your eyes to it. Heaven weeps because you think your suffering is permanent, when in reality it is only the echo of yesterday's thoughts, and the moment you change your inner song, the outer music must change. Do not be deceived by appearances, child. Your present condition is not fixed, it is fluid, and it bends to the authority of the vision you hold within. The poor man who begins to imagine himself rich is already planting the seeds of riches. The sick one who imagines herself whole is already watering the seed of healing. The broken one who imagines joy is already calling joy forth. Suffering lingers only as long as you cling to the pictures that create it. Have you not noticed how your fears seem to find you, how the very things you dread most often come knocking at your door? This is no accident. It is the law of imagination at work. Heaven cries because you spend so much of your energy imagining what you do not want, rehearsing disasters that never had to be, and then wondering why they manifest. If you knew the power of your mind, you would guard it more carefully than you guard your treasure. You would feed it with faith, nurture it with love, guide it with vision, for you would know that every image held long enough becomes your tomorrow. The world you see is not the cause of your imagination, it is the result of it. If you wish to end your suffering, do not fight the outer shadows, change the inner light. My child, suffering is not your identity, it is your teacher. It is the messenger that comes to show you that you have imagined wrongly, that you have created without awareness. Do not curse it, but do not cling to it either. Let it awaken you. Let it remind you that if imagination can create pain unconsciously, it can create joy consciously. The same power that builds prisons also builds palaces. The same force that draws storms can summon sunshine. Heaven weeps because you settle for prisons when palaces are within reach, because you settle for crumbs when the feast has been prepared. But heaven also rejoices the moment you awaken, the instant you realize, I do not have to suffer, I can imagine differently. So today, here. Heavens cry not as condemnation, but as invitation. You are not bound to your suffering. You are bound only to the pictures you choose to hold. Change the picture, and you change the experience. Shift your imagination, and you shift your world. When fear whispers, dare to imagine courage. When lack surrounds you, dare to imagine abundance. When sorrow presses in, dare to imagine joy. For imagination is not a game of the mind. It is the very breath of creation, the womb of destiny, the law that governs heaven and earth. Use it wrongly, and suffering will reflect it. Use it rightly, and glory will unfold. Heaven's tears today are not hopeless. They are rivers of love urging you to awaken, to claim the brush in your hand, to paint a new future on the canvas of your life. And when you do, my child, those tears will turn into songs, and heaven itself will rejoice, for you will have remembered the truth. Your suffering was never your identity, only the shadow of misused imagination. And now you are free. Heaven waits for you to claim your birthright, my child. Listen carefully, for today the heavens lean close with a message meant only for the ears of those ready to awaken. You are not meant to live in lack, fear, or despair. You are not destined to crawl through life begging for crumbs when the banquet of abundance is already prepared for you. You are not created to stumble in the dark when light has been placed within you from the very beginning, and yet, though your divine birthright has never been taken away, you live as though you are a stranger to it, and this is why everyone in heaven is crying for you. The tears above are not cries of anger, nor of disappointment, but of holy yearning, for heaven waits with open arms, with treasures already written in your name, with blessings pressed down and overflowing, and yet you hesitate, you shrink back, you delay, living in shadows when the sun of your inheritance has already risen. You are a child of the eternal, born with the seed of creation inside you, clothed with authority, crowned with possibility, destined for greatness beyond imagination, but you wander through the valleys of self, doubt as though you were powerless, as though you were forgotten, as though you were ordinary. My child, do you not see the tragedy? The angels weep not because your life is cursed, but because your eyes are closed, not because you are empty, but because you refuse to claim what is already yours. You are the heir of divine abundance, yet you settle for scraps. You are the inheritor of peace, yet you embrace worry. You are the chosen vessel of joy, yet you cradle sorrow as if it were your portion, and heaven cannot help but cry, for it sees the banquet laid before you while you sit in hunger. It sees the robe of glory folded for you while you walk in rags. It sees the keys of freedom placed in your hand while you rattle the chains of bondage. Do you not know that your birthright is already written in eternity? Long before you drew breath, your inheritance was secured. The Eternal never designed you to fail, never meant for you to live in fear, never desired that you should wander as though unloved. You were chosen, my child, and that choice has never been revoked. Heaven waits not to give you something new, but to awaken you to what you already carry. You cry for blessings when the blessings are within. You beg for strength when the strength has always been yours. You plead for miracles when the miraculous is already sown in your very being. Heaven cries because you are asleep to this truth, but the moment you awaken, the moment you dare to rise and say, "This is my inheritance, I will not live beneath it any longer," everything changes. The angels know this, which is why they weep until you know it too. They know you were not designed to bow to circumstances, but to rule them. They know you were not created to chase after life, but to call it forth. They know you were not born to survive, but to reign, and yet, until you claim it, they can only cry, waiting for the day when you stand tall in the authority of your birthright. Consider the story of prodigal child who wandered far from the father's house, squandering his inheritance and sitting among swine, starving, humiliated, broken, believing he was unworthy of love. And yet all along the father had prepared a robe, a ring, a feast, and arms wide open, waiting for his return. This is the picture of your life, my child. You think you are far, you think you are forgotten, you think you are unworthy, but heaven does not see you that way. Heaven sees the robe already yours, the feast already prepared, the inheritance already secure. Heaven cries only because you sit in the pigsty of fear when the palace of faith is waiting. You walk in the chains of doubt when the throne of authority is prepared. You live as though you are disinherited when your name is already written in eternal light. But here is the secret. Your birthright is not claimed by begging, nor by pleading, nor by waiting. It is claimed by awakening, by believing, by accepting the truth that you are more than you appear to be. It is claimed by shifting your inner vision, by standing in faith, by declaring boldly, "I am who God says I am. I possess what God says I possess. I can do what God says I can do." Heaven cannot give you what you will not receive, for inheritance is only useful when it is claimed. A crown left on the table does not make you a king until you wear it. A robe folded in the closet, it does not clothe you until you put it on. A feast spread upon the table does not feed you until you eat. And so, my child, the whole of heaven waits, weeping with love, until you dare to claim what is yours. Your birthright is abundance, not the kind measured only in coins and possessions, but abundance of peace, abundance of joy, abundance of wisdom, abundance of love. Your birthright is freedom, the kind that cannot be bound by fear, cannot be silenced by doubt, cannot be broken by circumstance. Your birthright is authority, the power to imagine and see creation bow to your vision, the strength to speak and know your words carry divine force, the courage to walk as one who knows heaven backs every step. This is not arrogance, this is inheritance. You were not made to crawl when you were created to soar. You were not formed to beg when you were destined to command. You were not designed to shrink when you were chosen to shine. And yet, heaven waits patiently, weeping but not despairing, for it knows the truth. You cannot run from your birthright forever. The day will come when you awaken, when you tire of the shadows, when you hunger for more, when the cry within you grows louder than the cry around you, and then you will rise, and when you do, heaven's tears will dry, replaced with songs of rejoicing, for the child who once forgot has remembered, the heir who once wandered has come home, the chosen who once doubted now walks in glory. My child, understand this. Your suffering is not permanent. Your lack is not your destiny. Your fear is not your identity. They are only delays, distractions, illusions that vanish the moment you remember your inheritance. So today, heaven's message is clear. Claim your birthright. Do not delay another day. Do not postpone another hour. Do not wait for permission that has already been given. You are chosen. You are loved. You are powerful. You are heir to the kingdom of divine possibility. The doors are open, the banquet is ready, the robe is waiting, and heaven itself is crying for you, not because you are lost, but because you are living as though you are. Rise, my child, take your place, walk in your inheritance, and know this eternal truth. Heaven has always believed in you, heaven has always prepared for you, and heaven will never stop waiting until you claim what has always been yours. The cry is a call to awaken, not a curse, my child, when you hear that everyone in heaven is crying for you. You must not mistake those tears as a curse, nor as a sign that you are forsaken, but rather as a holy call, a divine summons, a trumpet sounding in the unseen, urging you to awaken from the dream of limitation and remember who you are. The cry of heaven is never to condemn, it is always to invite. It is not the voice of judgment, but the voice of love. Not the weight of rejection, but the hand of remembrance. When heaven cries, it is not saying you are doomed, it is saying you are asleep, and it longs for you to rise. It is not a cry of despair, but a cry of hope, for heaven knows that within you lies the power to awaken at any moment, to shift from fear to faith, from lack to abundance, from despair to joy, from weakness to strength. The angels cry because they see you as you truly are, magnificent, radiant, clothed in divine power. Yet you live as though you are bound, powerless, broken. Their tears fall not as chains to weigh you down, but as reminders that you are capable of so much more. Heaven's cry is the echo of eternal love, calling you to take back your mind, to reclaim your inner vision, to arise from the ashes of self-doubt, and to see yourself as God has always seen you, chosen, powerful, unbroken. Child, too often you hear your pain and think it is punishment. You feel your struggles and call them curses, but do you not see that even these things are voices calling you to awaken? Suffering is not heaven's rejection, it is heaven's alarm clock. Every hardship you face, every tear you cry, every disappointment you endure is not the sign that you are abandoned, but the evidence that you are being urged to rise higher, to look deeper, to remember your true nature. Heaven cries when you forget, but heaven never forgets you. The cry is not a final judgment, it is an invitation to begin again. Think of it like the dawn, when the night is darkest, the first rays of light break through not to condemn the darkness, but to announce a new day. So too does heaven's cry break into your night seasons, not to curse you, but to awaken you to the possibility of new beginnings. My child, the cry from heaven is proof that you are loved beyond measure, for if heaven did not care, it would be silent. Silence would mean abandonment, but the cry means involvement. Heaven is invested in you, in your growth, in your becoming, and every tear that falls is a symbol of divine attention, divine compassion, divine calling. Hear the cry not with fear but with faith, not with dread but with hope, for the cry is saying, rise, you are more than this. Rise, your story is not finished. Rise, your destiny is greater than your difficulty. Rise, your chains are illusions and your freedom is real. You are not being punished, you are being summoned. You are not being cursed, you are being awakened. Consider a child sleeping through a storm. The parent does not let the storm rage without action, but shakes the child gently, calling them to wake up. The child may not want to awaken, may prefer the comfort of sleep, but the call is for their safety, their growth, their good. In the same way, heaven shakes you, heaven cries for you, not to harm you, but to stir you, not to ruin you, but to remind you, not to punish you, but to push you toward your destiny. You may feel that life has betrayed you, but in truth life has been whispering, calling, urging you to see that you are not what your circumstances declare. You are what your inner vision proclaims. The cry is holy dissatisfaction, that restless ache inside you that refuses to settle for mediocrity, that inner stirring that tells you there must be more than this. Have you not felt it? That quiet voice that says you were not born for smallness, that you were not designed for defeat, that your life has purpose greater than what you see. That is heaven crying within you. It is not a curse, it is your compass. It is not rejection, it is direction. Every tear from heaven carries within it a message. Awaken, my child, for you are more than you think. You are stronger than you feel. You are greater than your fears allow you to believe. But here lies the mystery, my child. You can resist the cry, you can ignore it, you can bury it beneath distractions, but you cannot silence it forever, for it is eternal love calling you home. The more you resist, the louder it grows, until the day comes when you can no longer deny it, and you must awaken. Heaven's cry is relentless. Not because it seeks to torment you, but because it refuses to let you die in the dream of limitation. It will follow you through the valleys, echo through the storms, linger in your loneliness, whisper in your failures, until you finally turn and answer, "Here I am, Lord, I remember, I am awake." And in that moment, heaven's tears turn into songs, the cry becomes laughter, and what once felt like a curse is revealed as the greatest gift, the gift of awakening. So today, see your struggles differently. See them not as curses, but as calls. See your disappointments not as punishments, but as invitations. See your pain not as rejection, but as the gentle shaking of a loving father saying, "Wake up, child, there is more for you." Do not despise the cry, for the cry is your lifeline. It is heaven's way of saying you are too precious to be left in darkness, too powerful to remain in chains, too chosen to settle for less than your divine inheritance. Heaven cries because it loves, and heaven cries because it knows. When you finally awaken, you will realize you were never broken, never abandoned, never cursed. You were only asleep, and now you are alive. So rise, my child, answer the cry. Let the tears of heaven stir you to remembrance. Lift your eyes from the ground, lift your heart from despair, lift your mind from fear, and claim your place among the awakened. For heaven's cry is not a curse. It is the greatest blessing, the most profound invitation, the eternal reminder that you are chosen, you are powerful, and you are destined to shine. And when you awaken, heaven's cry will cease, and in its place will be songs of rejoicing. For the one who once slept has arisen, the one who once doubted has believed, the one who once wandered has come home. When you remember who you are, heaven rejoices, my child. The moment you awaken to your true identity, the very atmosphere of heaven changes, the cries turn into celebration, the mourning transforms into music, and every angel who once wept for you now sings with joy, because heaven has never doubted who you are. It has only longed for you to remember. You see, heaven never lost faith in you, never saw you as weak, never called you broken. It always knew that within you lives the eternal spark, the power to imagine, to create, to speak life into existence, the authority to command mountains to move. When you walked in fear, heaven still saw courage in you. When you sat in lack, heaven still saw abundance within you. When you stumbled in despair, heaven still saw joy seated in your soul. The tears came only because you forgot, because you bowed to shadows when the light was always within, because you lived as though powerless when all of heaven knew you carried divine authority. But oh, the moment of remembrance, the instant you look within and say, "I am not a victim, I am not forsaken, I am not small, I am chosen, I am powerful, I am the image of God." The whole of heaven erupts in rejoicing because you have finally aligned with the truth that has been written in eternity since the beginning. Think of it this way, my child. When a king's heir, clothed in rags and wandering the streets, suddenly awakens and realizes, "I am not a beggar, I am royalty," he does not become royalty at that moment. He always was. He simply remembered, and the palace, the crown, the robe, the feast, all of it, was waiting for him to step back into it. So too is it with you. Heaven never questions your inheritance. It simply waits for you to wear it. And when you do, when you finally rise and claim your divine place, the rejoicing is not because heaven has given you something new, but because you have remembered what was always yours. Heaven's joy is the celebration of your awakening, the dance of eternity as one more child takes their place in the kingdom, not as a servant crawling in fear, but as an heir walking in authority. Child, this is why heaven cries until you remember, because your remembrance is the turning point of everything. It is not the world that changes first, it is you. The moment you awaken, your vision shifts, your heart expands, your imagination begins to create differently, and as your inner world transforms, the outer world cannot help but follow. The angels sing not because the circumstances have shifted, but because you have. For once you remember who you are, circumstances must bow. Once you remember, lack must flee. Once you remember, fear loses its grip. Once you remember, the chains of despair break effortlessly. The rejoicing of heaven is not just joy in the unseen, it is the echo of transformation that will ripple into your life, reshaping everything around you. Do you not see the power in this, my child? You have spent so much time thinking heaven rejoices only when you achieve, when you prove yourself, when you climb some mountain of effort. But heaven does not rejoice in your striving. Heaven rejoices in your remembering, for remembrance is alignment, and alignment is power. The Eternal has never asked you to earn love, to work for blessing, to beg for approval. It has only asked you to awaken, to realize that love is already yours, blessing is already yours, approval is already yours. The cry of heaven ends the moment you see it, and from that moment forward, rejoicing begins. Think of the lost sheep carried home by the shepherd. When it is found, all of heaven rejoices, not because the sheep has done something great, not because it proved its strength, but simply because it was brought back into remembrance of where it belongs. The same is true for you. Heaven's greatest joy is not your perfection, it is your awakening, not your performance, but your remembrance, not your striving, but your surrender to the truth of who you are. When you stand in that truth, heaven cannot help but sing, for the harmony of eternity is restored in your life. And my child, understand this. Remembering who you are does not mean you will never face storms, but it means you will no longer fear them. It does not mean circumstances will never challenge you, but it means you will meet them as one who knows they cannot define you. For when you remember you are chosen, storms become stepping stones, obstacles become opportunities, trials become testimonies. Heaven rejoices because it knows that once you are awake, nothing can hold you down again. You may stumble, but you will rise quickly. You may cry, but you will never forget the song of joy within. You may walk through shadows, but you will carry light with you. The power of remembrance transforms not just how you see yourself, but how you see life itself. And oh, how heaven sings when you dare to imagine again, when you use the gift of vision not for fear but for faith, not for lack but for abundance, not for despair but for glory. Every picture of victory you hold within is music to the angels. Every thought of abundance waters the fields of heaven with joy. Every act of faith sends ripples through eternity, shaking the halls of heaven with celebration. You are more powerful than you have believed, my child, and heaven has been waiting for the day you remember. The cry was only until you opened your eyes, but the rejoicing is forever once you do. So today, hear the message clearly. When you remember who you are, heaven rejoices. Not when you achieve, not when you prove, not when you perform, but when you awaken. The greatest miracle is not what happens around you, but what happens within you. The greatest victory is not in the world, but in the mind that dares to claim its divinity. And once you stand in that truth, nothing can take it from you. The banquet of heaven has always been laid. The crown has always been yours. The robe of glory has always been folded with your name on it. All heaven ever longed for was that you would wear it, walk in it, and live as who you truly are. My child, the tears of heaven were never meant to last forever. They were always temporary, always a bridge to your awakening. And now, if you dare to believe, if you dare to rise, if you dare to remember, then the sound of weeping will be replaced with the sound of songs, the cry with the sound of trumpets, the mourning with the music of rejoicing. Heaven celebrates you not because you became someone new, but because you finally remembered who you have always been. So walk boldly, live fully, create fearlessly, and know this eternal truth. You are chosen, you are loved, you are powerful, and heaven itself rejoices when you awaken to this truth.